Hello. I want to spend a few minutes talking about poster presentations today. I'm going to focus on the basics. When it comes to the exact content of your specific posters, we can discuss those in your group meetings with me. First thing I want to address is that you need a title page, or in most cases, I suspect a title banner will be more appropriate. Keep in mind that under normal circumstances, normal meaning we'd actually be meeting in person, you could either do a printed poster, which everything comes off at once, or you could print separate pages on a trifold. So I'm going to talk about both of those. On your title page, this is APA format, you'll need the study title, the name of the researchers, Valparaiso University, social work department, so those things specifically word for word, my name and title, and list me as a sponsor, and then the date of the presentation. The two formats that are most commonly used are the banner or the cover page formats. The banner is, as you'd suspect, at the top with large print, and it would have the content that I just mentioned. So your names, the university, the department, my name, and listed as a sponsor, and then the date of the presentation. The alternative, and it could be larger than this if you wanted, in fact, it'd probably be better, is to have a single page printed and then pinned to a poster with the exact same information, but it would look very similar to the front page of your final paper. I'm going to encourage you under these circumstances to use the banner approach, since everything's going to be electronic, and so individual pages is not really a necessity. Things to keep in mind, and some of these matter more when they are in physical format, but I think they're still relevant here, is to have big headings so that someone could see it from a distance, but also in this format so that someone who is just glancing at your poster online could see what those headings are and could go to the section that she or he wanted to. Normally, if we were doing this live, I would encourage you to have handouts that people could take away, making your poster presentation more memorable. Also, it looks a little bit more professional. In most cases, after the banner, the next section would be an introduction, which is also going to serve as your lit review. And you could list it as a lit review if you wanted, as an alternative instead of the heading of introduction. And in this, you list your aims and either your research questions or hypotheses. Those need to be in there. Whether or not you do a lit review that points to those things, and so they are at the end of the lit review, or they have their own subheading at the beginning so people know exactly what you're talking about right from the start, it's up to you. So the aims and research questions or hypotheses could be the first portion of your introduction or lit review, or they could be at the end because your lit review points to those. The next thing to introduce would be your methods. Describe how you got the data. This will not be in the same degree that you will in your final paper, as is true for all the sections here, but give the readers a quick snapshot of how you got the data so they have a general idea. Then report your results. This is almost always the last section, and it's here, if you're going to use tables or charts, that they make the most sense. You need to be clean, and I mean physically, it needs to look very distinct, and the results jump out at people. Make it clear and make it succinct. You don't have enough space to go into enormous detail. And that means don't use the SPSS printout or whatever software you're using. That means you're going to have to clean it up, focus on just the most essential statistics and the results. So someone who is casually familiar with statistics could get the idea of what's going on. Then have an implication section. If we were doing the page format, it's usually one page. Here it's just a smaller section than the results. And here you're taking the results and you're translating them into ideas that are practicable. If someone was going to research it further, it would give them ideas on what the main findings were. And if someone is in practice, which is going to be mostly your audience, then it will tell them what information to take from this that might actually be useful in working with people or in how to view people in circumstances like those you're studying. You should have a limitation section, and this is usually short. Just highlight some of the ways that your study is limited, either in how generalizable it is, or it could include mistakes that you made that you would do differently if you're going to do the study again, or simply ways that the study didn't address certain things. A study can't be quote unquote perfect. As I've said many times before, you have to make choices. And so you can list some of these choices here. You chose to focus on A, which meant you couldn't give as much attention to B. You need a reference section. This should look just like a reference section at the end of your paper. Here's one example of how it might be laid out. The banner at the top, and then the introduction or lit review on the left with the text describing that. And in this example, the aims, research questions, and hypotheses are at the end of that section. Like I said before, they could be at the beginning. Then the methods, I left the most space for the results, and then the implications, limitations, and references on the right. Exactly whether you consider this particular layout attractive or not is not important to me, but make it attractive, but that the way that you decorate or make things pop out visually supports the research rather than overwhelming the research. So attractiveness does matter, but it shouldn't be overwhelming. Some other things to consider. As I mentioned before, make it attractive, inviting. Make people want to look at it. It matters. And then use APA format. So if you're referencing things in your introduction section, for example, and the way you do your reference section, make that APA specific. And things that you could focus on that I didn't list in the one that I just showed you. You could have a specific conclusion section. And I think I mentioned briefly, you could insert tables or charts, particularly in the results sections, that highlight what you found, tables and charts. If you can convey a lot of information in a limited amount of space, then they're an effective method for doing that sometimes. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to ask me questions about the content or about the layout. We'll work on this together and have it ready by May 1st. Thanks very much.